Connor.
And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we're Friends Stream Sports. We're real friends. We talk about real sports in real time, and we're bringing some real big teams to the hardwood tonight, Connor.
Rutledge, you are finally taking my advice and playing with an all-time team. I am a trendsetter here, but I'm glad you're catching on.
I I have to catch on to what the locals do. I'd also like to give a shout out. I had a really good dinner tonight. I went to a place called Ellie Lou's Barbecue and Brew in Claremont, Florida this evening, off of Highway 50. You guys should go check it out. It was really good.
Ellie Lou's Barbecue and Brew. What kind of barbecue are we doing?
They have some chicken, they do some turkey, they got some pulled pork. I had a Kansas City wet with some onion straws. That was
Oh,
oh so good.
oh, nice.
So big shout out to them. A good friend of the show named Chris Pirelli is with them, so want to give a shout out to them and their outstanding delicious barbecue.
Wonderful. And let's give a shout out to these outstanding, delicious uniforms.
Throwback uniforms.
Throwback all day.
Damian Lillard just immediately I just want to take Dame to the paint and just have that layup to just show that we're not messing around tonight, Connor.
Oh, we never mess around,
We
and that's
never
why.
mess around.
So speaking of not messing around, Rutledge, Orlando City got their first win.
They did. I was there on Saturday. I was in supporters section when Akindele knocked in that very early goal and then cradled it like a baby. So that was a beautiful thing. But Connor, what did you see when you watched some OCSC this weekend?
I think that Orlando City, very happy for them to get their first win. I think in some regards, I mean, it might have been more about them playing Cincinnati, and Cincinnati's not exactly world beaters, but I think even though Tesho got his first goal this season, definitely not a long-term solution at that number 9 position. Um, if I sure hope that Daryl DK comes back to Orlando, or at the very least, Orlando gets some good value, just because there's some good opportunities for the non number 9 position, but Orlando's actually good enough right now where they need to be worried about the number 9 position, right? That striker position. So Pato's hurt. No Daryl DK. Foul on the Mavs. I think that Nani, I would expect Nani's minutes to get managed throughout the course of the season. He's started out playing really well, but this is a long, long season, and we're going to want Nani feeling good for the playoffs. Finally, I think kind of my third big take is I'm liking the Mueller-Michelle kind of combo out there on the wing, right? So one guy will start, the other guy will maybe come in off the bench as a substitute. They both bring a lot of really good energy to the game. So it'll be very interesting to see how Orlando is looking after these next 5 games between NYCFC, DC United, Toronto, and New York Red Bulls. All the next 5 games are against Eastern Conference opponents, so could definitely really, really, be able to get some good, not just get some good points, but be able to work against the some other Eastern Conference opponents. So I know that's a long take to describe your question, Rutledge. How's it been? You've been to 2 games so far this season.
The energy in the stadium, yeah, the energy in the stadium and the excitement is still there. As an Orlando City fan, the one thing you talk about, and it was even brought up on the first game, and the first game was hot, is the heat. Um, Connor and I love our Lions, but man, those July ones are rough. And you just have to get, when you talk about Nani's minutes, there's going to be times, and I remember especially during the MLS play-in tournament here in Walt Disney World at the ESPNY World of Sports, it gets big into a lot of mandated MLS hydration breaks. We didn't really have that on Saturday because it was late. I'm hoping that the MLS, I know there's a lot more late games on the schedule, but I hope that the MLS lets the weather play into Orlando's favor because there is something to be said about the team gets just sort of gassed from being in those elements all the time. And you can see it when other teams come into town. They've practiced in the heat. Orlando's lived in the heat. let's say a Toronto comes in, had fresh weather, is able to hydrate, prepare, get settled, and they just get outplayed because they're exhausted. So um, great energy, but I'm worried about the elements as always for us.
No doubt, no doubt. But so we'll see. Oscar Pereja, old Poppy, he seems to know what he's all about. The other thing, Rutledge, that I think Orlando needs to definitely be in consideration of, right, is just cleaning up that play out of the back, um, playing from the back to the front. Pedro Gallese, good goalie. From everything I've seen so far this year, probably the number one biggest mistake that Orlando can struggle with is just that simple little goal kick to the center back. There's some pressure. There's been some miscommunications and breakdowns so far that led to the Kansas City goal that they had. So definitely interested to see that progress over the course of the season, and be very ready to roll there.
Yeah.
So one thing that was pretty hot this weekend was a particular protest that happened at Old Trafford.
Oh,
Why don't you
yes.
tell us a little bit more about that?
So, for all those that don't know, even though the Super League is dissolved, the Manchester United fan base is still not very happy about it. And actually, the Manchester United game this weekend got postponed because the, I guess the only way to describe it is the fan bases of Manchester United stormed the building and took over to where a game could not be played. There's still very much hate against the ownership, even though, as we've talked about, Manchester United is probably one of the more recognizable soccer brands internationally. You could pick their jersey out of a store and go, that's an English soccer team. As an American sports fan who's never watched soccer, um, Man U, their fans have had enough. They don't like that the team has gone the money direction that it does. English teams really are about the pride in their city, and even though this brand is huge, uh, I I think power to the people. It really shows in today's world that even though everything's bigger, louder, faster, that we are not getting anything to go in. Even though it's bigger, louder, faster, it is still about sports are still about the athletes and the fans. We think it's about money, we think it's about TV, we think it's about everything else, but it is still all about the people. So, Connor, what did you think watching that go down?
You know, it, what's interesting, right, is both teams still have a lot to play for, and you would think from the fans' perspective, yeah, as a fan, it's kind of like, man, you can be mad at ownership, but do what you can to make sure that the game gets played on time. You don't want other things to be going down, making an issue there. Just like Dallas, kind of running roughshod right now over the Portland Trailblazers.
Roughshot is light terms about what is happening right now.
So, but we're still all right here. No, I think it's interesting, right? Because as you said, the Super League isn't happening. Fans in a lot of ways got what they wanted. I guess one of the things I was thinking about, Rutledge, and would love to hear your take is, and I've got a few thoughts. It's like, what is this like for us in America, right? We don't see games postponed because of things that teams do. So many things we want to get into the stands because of the life around us. So we want to have our little sports escape. And the fans were so mad they didn't even do that. So I was thinking about, some of the things that Philadelphia fans are famous for, throwing snowballs at Santa Claus because the team is so bad. When you go to games with a bag on your head, that's a pretty American sports move to kind of show discontent. In your opinion, Rutledge, what's some of the biggest things that American sports fans do to show discontent? What would be the closest thing that we would ever see to something like this?
I think the biggest event historically that I could say, and I can't remember the name of the player, but it was when flag burning was a really big protest in America, and two fans raided a baseball stadium, and they attempt to light the flag on fire, and the player ran up and grabbed the flag and took it away from them. I think that is, if you think of American sports protests, that's probably one of the bigger moments that ever happened in American sports history. You go, wow, I can't believe that happened. Um, I think with what you're hitting at, Connor, is American sports there's a lot of escapism into American sports. For a lot of people, I have a friend of mine, he's a Gator fan, season ticket holder. Going to Gator games is kind of what gets him through the months of August to August all the way until December when he goes to the championship game or a bowl game or something. I don't see American fans wanting to go the same route as blocking a game from happening, but that's also where we have different values of what a sport is. So I think the biggest American equivalent um, that you would see would not come from fans as much as it would come from players. I think a player protest or player lockouts of negotiations or money, um, that's sort of where my head's at in that world. But
And then the other thing too you got to think about is fans will, American fans will just act with their wallet. They just will straight up not go to games. You'll see that. And I think in some ways we idealize European soccer that the games are always sold out no matter what. But I do think American sports will have a little bit more of, for example, the Orlando Magic. They've been bad for the last couple years, like really bad, without too many good players. And what you're seeing now is, Orlando in terms of attendance at games is very low. So I think you're going to see a lot of that, but definitely a wild one for sure as it relates to this Man United and Liverpool. And as always, soccer continues to give us a lot of storylines.
it does. I think Peter had a really good way of showing it on one of our previous shows. He really talked up the differences that happen between, of just sort of how at least the English crowd loves the game different than the American crowd loves the game. So I think they would protest it differently. But I think you're right, Connor. That is why I think relegation will never work in America. Case in point, like in Orlando Magic, if we get relegation in a sport of ours, American fans just won't show up to support that team. But
And that would not be good. Not be good for the pocketbooks of the old owners.
it would not.